Good afternoon. I'm Karen Holmes Ward. Welcome to Cityline. Let's welcome in the Lunar New Year. Later in the program, all about the Year of the Tiger. But first, we kick off Black History Month with a look at the role that African Americans in Boston played in the movement to abolish slavery. The Museum of African American History on Beacon Hill and Nantucket has produced a film that chronicles the influential role of the free Black community that once thrived on Beacon Hill. Hosted by actor Hill Harper, it's called Jubilee, Juneteenth, and the 13th.
I'm walking down the northern slope of Beacon Hill, in the neighborhood that Blacks in Boston's 18th and 19th century called home. Today, this is one of the most exclusive and expensive areas in the country. Hello, I'm Hill Harper, and I'm on a journey to explore this Boston hidden history.
Join Hill Harper as he explores America's journey from slavery to freedom. The story that begins with the settlement of the English in North America and the hidden heroes, people of African descent.
Is this literally what we're looking at, what it looked like back then? Or is this kind of a cooler, more modern version? Like, is this literally where he walked? These are the exact floors where Frederick Douglass actually walked?
These are the same floors.
The exact same floors?
Yes, the exact same floors, the exact same halls, the exact same sounds that you're hearing, the windows, all of these things. This is the oldest extant Black church building still standing in the United States. So it's built in 1806. This is really, you're really walking in history. There's been renovation on the building, of course, but in terms of the floorboards, in terms of the pulpit, in terms of the pews that you see and the acoustics in here, this is what was here when African American people were here in the 19th century.
The first abolitionists whose centuries-long fight for freedom and equality intensified during the antebellum and Civil War years in Boston and accelerated with the Emancipation Proclamation and 13th Amendment.
And joining me is Dr. Kelly Carter Jackson. She's the Naval Assistant Professor of Humanities and Africana Studies at Wellesley College and an historian in residence at the Museum of African American History. Welcome, Dr. Carter Jackson. You are featured prominently in the documentary that's been produced by the Museum of African American History and funded by the Liberty Mutual Foundation, MGH, and the Harvard University Office for Equity, Diversion, Inclusion, and Belonging. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Dr. Carter Jackson, so many think of enslavement as an institution that only existed in southern states, but in Massachusetts, slavery's roots were planted during the colonial era. Can you tell us more?
Yes, actually, Massachusetts is the first state to officially recognize the institution of slavery. Slavery took place in every single colony in the United States. So there's no place in America that slavery really doesn't touch. And I think that's a fact that most Americans aren't aware of. They've only thought of slavery as a Southern phenomenon. But really, slavery is thriving in Massachusetts, in New York. New York boasts the second largest enslaved population. About 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 enslaved people are living in New York. Connecticut, Rhode Island, these were huge, ports of entry for slave ships in which they could trade and bring in enslaved people, enslaved commodities. So Massachusetts and New England in particular plays a really special and I would say important role when it comes to understanding the institution of slavery and how it plays out throughout the rest of the country.
Any date on how early in this country's history that slaves were brought to Massachusetts?
It's hard to know the exact date, but back to the 18th century, we can even go back in some places to the 17th century, dating how early enslaved people have come. I believe 1641 might be a date that comes to my mind, but again, we're not completely sure on those dates.
So tell us about some of the unknown African American heroes that are profiled in the documentary.
So many. What I love about this documentary is that we get to introduce people that not a lot of people know about. I think people are familiar with Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman, but people don't know a lot about Lewis Hayden. And Lewis Hayden was a huge figure in the abolitionist movement, especially in the city of Boston. He lived in Beacon Hill. Him and his wife, Harriet, served as a safe house for runaways to come to them. He becomes the president of the Anti-Slavery Society there. He is responsible for Anthony Burns, when Anthony Burns, the famous escaped slave who runs away to Boston, finds safe haven with Lewis Hayden. There is William Nell Cooper, who becomes a historian and huge advocate of integration in Boston schools. There are so many people that I could name when I think of like Mariah Stewart or David Walker. These are all famous Black abolitionists that lived right in Boston, and we get to walk in the same streets in which they lived and moved, and we get to learn about the momentous history that they contributed to.
Dr. Carter Jackson, sorry for my coughing, and to our viewers, sorry about that. Dr. Carter Jackson, talk to us about how the free Black community that lived on the north slope of Beacon Hill influenced the national conversation on ending slavery.
Yeah, what I love about the small Black population in Beacon Hill is that they are small, but they are mighty. And the things that they are doing, the activism that they are generating has ripple effects, not just across the city, but across the country. And so they're pushing efforts for not just emancipation. A lot of Black abolitionists saw emancipation as a first step. They're pushing for equality and really what we would call equity today. They're also pushing for school integration to make it so that Black children can go to schools and get the same sort of resources and education that white students would get. They're pushing for all kinds of aspects of the lived experiences of Black people for improvement, and not just improvement to survive, but they're trying to put Black people on the road to prosperity. And I think that's such an important part of this story, is that this is not just about ending slavery for the sake of abolition. This is about putting all Black Americans on a fair and solid footing.
And talk specifically, if you would, as well, about how this community impacted the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments of the Constitution.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that the 13th Amendment was really proposed by the Black community, by other white women abolitionists that came together and really held Lincoln's feet to the fire and said, this needs to be a constitutional amendment. It can't just be a law that could later be repealed. It has to be a part of the very fabric of American democracy. And so they pushed for the 13th Amendment, which abolishes slavery, the 14th Amendment, which establishes citizenship for all people who are born or naturalized in the United States. And then the 15th Amendment, which removes race as an impediment to voting. So for the first time, Black men can have access to the ballot and they can vote. This doesn't quite include women yet, but that too comes later.
There is a movement by some to prevent a more balanced look at the history of this country. How do you, as a teacher of history, push back against that effort?
I just lay out the facts. So a lot of times I don't have to, preach. I don't have to be very persuasive. I can simply show my students the primary sources, the documents, the articles, the newspapers, the diaries, the things that people were saying in that very moment. And so when, for example, we want to talk about the Civil War and the cause of it, we read the original succession documents that talk about South Carolina and Georgia and Texas, saying specifically why they were leaving, and why they were leaving because the threat of slavery would be unended if they stayed in the Union. When students read those documents, they can tell for themselves what the real causes were. So I try to let history speak for itself, and I try to let the sources talk, if you will, and inform the students who are learning about this moment.
As the expression goes, you're entitled to your own opinion, but not to your own facts.
Exactly.
Dr. Kelly Carter Jackson, thanks for being here today. Thanks for your time. And everybody, there's going to be a special screening of this film in partnership with the Museum of Science and MGH at the Museum of African American History, Boston. It's at 46 Joy Street on Beacon Hill. That will take place on Wednesday, February 23rd at 7 p.m. Space is limited, so visit maah.org/events for more information. Supporting Boston's Black restaurants, the annual challenge to help keep these restaurants open, and the effort to direct pandemic funding to those businesses.